Okay, I'd like to start off by saying Barakatah Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem, Rucha Kudash. Welcome to another live lesson. The title of today's lesson is The End of the World. It's a throwback, a throwback title. And there's this song called Teotwaki, and you spell it out. It's an acronym for the end of the world as we know it. And the end of the world as we know it means the end of a particular age. Because when the Most High created the worlds, he had a plan, and his plan consisted of certain rulerships to rule on the planet, to bring in the end of the world. And that end of the world that was going to come was the end of all the rulerships of all these different nations on the planet. And then the Most High establishing Yahweh Shai's kingdom, which we are joint heirs with him. Hopefully, we make it out of here, the hopeful elect. Yahweh Shai's kingdom will be established, and the earth will be ruled again in total righteousness. But there had to be a process of things, of events to happen before we got to Yahweh Shai's kingdom / Israel's kingdom. All right. So I want to start off, because when people speak about the end of the world, they're thinking that the end of everything, the Lord is going to just destroy it, blow up the earth, just like when you see in them Star Wars movies when they blow up all whole planets, and that's not the case, because the earth was created to be here forever. Matter of fact, let's go to Ecclesiastes chapter 1 and verse 4. It says, "One generation passeth away, and another generation, but the earth abideth forever." So the earth was set here to abide forever, because this is a place in the Most High's universe that he placed for man to dwell. All right, this is Psalms 115 and 16. It says, "Even the heavens are the Lord's, but the earth hath he given to the children of men." So the earth was created to be inhabited forever, continuously. Matter of fact, I'll get one more. This is Psalms 104 and 5. And it says, Who laid the foundation? Who laid the foundations of the earth, that it should not be removed forever? So when we're speaking about the end of the world, it's not talking about the end of creation, the end of the earth, the end of all existence. It's talking about the end of an age. Now let's go from there to the book of Matthew, chapter 24, and let's start at the first verse. It says, "And Yahweh Shai went out and departed from the temple, and his disciples came to him to show him the buildings of the temple. And Yahweh Shai said unto them, See ye not all these things? Verily I say unto you, there shall not be left hereon one stone upon another that shall not be thrown down." Because 70 AD was going to be a big part of the destruction of Israel and the destruction of the temple, but it reached further than that. Because during the time when Yahweh Shai was on the scene, you had who? You had the Roman Empire that was in power. And the Roman Empire was prophesied through the mouth of the prophet Daniel to be one of those kingdoms that would rule upon the earth. So we were in the time of the end of the world. But the end of the world took a period of time. Here it is, when Yahweh Shai spoke these words, we're 2,000 years into the future or so, of this prophecy that Yahushua was speaking of. You know, because when you read the book of Matthew 24, it goes back and forth between 70 AD and in today's time, you know, and sometimes certain chapters in the Bible jump like that. They'll jump to times in history. All of a sudden it'll be speaking about one thing, and it'll just start speaking about the chariots, or it'll be speaking about something else, and then it'll start speaking about the nuclear destruction, or they'll be speaking about one thing, and all of a sudden the subject will change from one time period to another. It all depends on the way that the Spirit of the Lord gave the vision to the prophet that he was giving it to. And that's why the Most High said, just write it down, because the prophets back then didn't understand the prophecies that they were seeing and the visions that they were seeing. But Barakatah Yahweh Bashem Yahushai, we understand them today. It says, now verse 3, and as he sat upon the Mount of Olives, the disciples came unto him privately, saying, tell us, when shall these things be, and what shall be the sign of thy coming and of the end of the world? See, so he pretty much is going to break it down, and he's going to pretty much go into the history of 70 AD, or into the prophecy in the future of 70 AD, and of the end of this age that's coming, you know, because whether they realize it or not, the disciples at the time, they were called disciples, they were later called apostles. The question that they asked him was a broad question. No, it wasn't just about the temple. They asked him about the end of the world. Now, when you go to that word world there in Matthew, the 24th chapter and the 3rd verse, it says world. All right, just bear with me 1 second. You go to the book of Matthew 24 and 3, and the word there is G165, eon. The word eon, it says properly an age, by extension perpetuity, also past, by implication the world, specifically Jewish. Really what it is, it's an uninterrupted rule. When it comes to man's empires and man's rules or kingdoms, it's an uninterrupted rule. And it applies the same to any age you use it for. You have in the so-called zodiac, you have the age of Aquarius and the age of Pisces and the age of Sagittarius and the age of Taurus and all of that. Those ages would last about 2,150 years or so. Brothers can fact check that, around that, So from one zodiac, so-called zodiac ruling to the next is an age of a little over 2,000 years. But then on Earth, the age dealing with man is different, because the age dealing with man is an uninterrupted rule. The beginning of their coming into power and the demise or the end of their empire or their kingdom. And this is what we're dealing with here. It says age, course, eternal, forevermore, in ever, beginning of while the world began without end. So pretty much it's an uninterrupted rule. All right, when you understand the term of the word world or eon in that particular sense. Now in the same chapter, when you jump down to the 14th verse, I'll jump into the 13th verse. But he that shall endure unto the end, the same shall be saved. And this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in all the world for a witness unto all nations, and then shall the end come. So now when you look up this particular word world, when you go back, let's go back, Matthew 24 and 14, the word world there is G3625, a different number, which is oikumene, which means a whole inhabited earth. Land that is terrene, part of the globe, specifically the Roman Empire, earth, world. It means a whole inhabited earth, oikumene. So the word oikumene means a whole inhabited earth. So this gospel had to be taught throughout the four corners of the earth, and then the end was going to come. So the question that the disciples asked Yahushua was a broad question, because he even told them after he was crucified and came back that they would have to preach in Jerusalem and Samaria and to the ends of the earth. to the uttermost parts of the earth, which the uttermost parts of the earth is over here in what's called today the Western Hemisphere. So this word is being taught all the way onto this side of the world. So we're at the very end of the world. You see? So the world that we're dealing with, the end of the world that we're dealing with is the end of an age. So now let's go from there to the book of Psalms, the 75th chapter and the 5th verse. It says, lift not up your horn on high. It says, speak not with a stiff neck, for promotion cometh neither from the east, nor from the west, nor from the south. But the Most High is the judge. He putteth down one and setteth up another. All right. Now let's go from there to Daniel 4:17. That's self-explanatory. Brothers know the breakdown to that. That's dealing with different kings that rule on the planet, different empires. They have their time to rule and they have their time to be brought down. All right. Daniel 4:17. It says, this matter is by the decree of the watchers, and the demand by the word of the holy ones, to the intent that the living may know that the Most High ruleth in the kingdom of men, and giveth it to whomsoever he will, and setteth up over it the basis of men. And today we have the basis of men ruling, which are the Edomites, the so-called white man, which is the basis of all men. Because when you go back into their history, they have a shameful, abominable, filthy history that they tried to whitewash by painting the picture to the world that they are the people of the Most High, you know, and that's why they do that. That's why the scriptures speak about the beast, you know, having the names of blasphemy written upon it, because that's exactly what America and these Edomites have done. They have whitewashed the whole world and deceived the whole world into believing that they're these benevolent people, when their history is nothing but a dark, disgusting, despicable history, filthy, dirty, nasty history. And if they're going to be ruling, how can they allow this information to come out, you know, and tell the world who they really are, if they're going to be governing and ruling and wanting to look in a good light? This is why in the Protocols of the Learned Elders of Zion, protocol number 16, it says that they will erase from history any sign of anything that made them look negative, because they're supposed to be the rulers of the earth, or as they call themselves, the masters of the universe, you know, that He-Man bullshit. But really, they're nothing but a despicable, filthy, low-life, caveman, beastly people, you know. So now let's go from there to Ecclesiastes. So how did they get to rule? Because the Most High gave them the power to rule, and it goes back to the blessing that was given to them by Isaac, the blessing of the sword, and to take the fatness of the earth and the dew of heaven by their sword. And that's exactly what they've done all the way up until this very day, from the moment they came into power during the Greeks all the way up until today. All right, so this is Ecclesiastes 9:11. It says, I returned and saw under the sun that the race is not to the swift, nor the battle to the strong, neither yet bread to the wise, nor yet riches to men of understanding, nor yet favor to men of skill, but time and chance happeneth to them all. That's right. That's why Judas Maccabees told his men not to fear. He said, because it's an easy thing with the Most High to win a battle with many or with few. You know, also you could look at the story of Gideon, you know, in his 300, you know. So not because you're faster or stronger or swifter or have better weaponry are you always going to win a battle or a war. It depends on the Most High. That's why it says time and chance happeneth to them all. Now let's jump from there to the 8th chapter and the 6th verse. It says, because to every purpose, there is time and judgment, therefore the misery of man is great upon him. So there's a time and a purpose for everything upon the earth, and a time and a judgment for everything on the earth. So the Lord has given the world and these different nations their opportunity to rule. And even when you go before the four great empires, you had the nations, the Moabites and the Ammonites and the different other nations that were ruling. See, so every nation on the planet had a time to rule. The nation of Israel only had a rule of peace for only 40 years under King Solomon, which the word Solomon means peaceable or peaceable one. You know, and that was the only time we really had quietness from all sides, from war and everything, for a period of 40 years. All right, and the earth is going to go back to that peaceful state. No more wars again, as it says in Isaiah the 2nd chapter and Malachi the 4th chapter. And this is the reason, one of the reasons that we know that these so-called white people in the land of Israel that's calling themselves Jews are not the Jews, because there's still wars on the earth, and they're the ones pushing for the wars, because there's money in war. You know, it's a racket. So that's how we know that these devils are not people of the Lord, because there's still wars on the planet Earth. And the wars are not going to stop until the final war, which is World War III, which the scriptures call Armageddon. You know, that's going to be the final war to end all wars. And then from that point on, the earth will be righteous again. The people of the Lord will be magnified once again. The laws put into our inward parts will have that great glow around us, you know, and everything's going to be back to its perfect and beautiful state that it's supposed to be in, you know, not this corrupt world that we live in today, this filthy, wretched, low-life world we live in today. All right, so now let's go from there to the book of Wisdom of Solomon in the Apocrypha. Wisdom of Solomon chapter 7, and just bear with me 1 second. It's 7 and 15. It says, "The Most High hath granted me to speak as I would." This is King Solomon speaking. "And to conceive as is meet for the things that are given me, because it is he that leadeth unto wisdom and directeth the wise. For in his hand are both we and our words, all wisdom also and knowledge of workmanship. For he hath given me certain knowledge of the things that are, namely to know how the world was made and the operations of the elements, the beginning, ending, and midst of time." So the Lord showed King Solomon the beginning, the ending, and the midst of times. So King Solomon saw all of these things. So everything is written in the scriptures. It's just that the Lord has to put it together through the Holy Spirit and open it up to his men to be able to push this word, you know. And we're at that time right now. So now let's go from there to the Apocrypha, 2nd Ezra chapter 14 and 1. "And it came to pass upon the 3rd day, I sat under an oak, and behold, there came a voice out of the bush over against me, and said, Esdras, Esdras. And I said, Here am I, Lord. And I stood up upon my feet. Then said he unto me, In the bush I did manifestly reveal myself unto Moses, and talked with him, when my people served in Egypt. And I sent him and led my people out of Egypt, and brought him up to the mount of Sinai, where I held him by me a long season." See, and that's why, and people think that Moses was in the mount with the Lord for 40 days and 40 nights, and he only got 10 commandments. Nah, he got many. He got about 613 laws, and then he also got many different visions and revelations of different things. But certain things the Lord told him not to write down. You know, certain things were not written. Certain things were only for his eyes to see at that time. Same thing with Ezra. There were certain things that were to be revealed to the people, and there were certain things that Israel, and there were certain things that were to be held back and only given to the prophets. You know, it says, "And told them many wondrous things, and showed them the secrets of the times." So the Most High showed them the secrets of the times, how everything began. That's why the first book of the law, of the Torah, or Thawara, the book of Genesis, which means beginning, it starts off with what? In the beginning, or in the heading, because the Most High showed them the of the beginning and how everything was created. The same thing he did with King Solomon, and they wrote these things down. You know, then it says, "And the end, and commanded him, saying, These words shalt thou declare, and these shalt thou hide." So the Most High showed Moses the secret of times, when everything began and when everything is going to end. The same thing he did with King Solomon, and the same thing he did with the prophets. So he showed them all the ending of these things to come. All right. So let's go from there to the book of Uh, let's go from there to the book of Daniel, chapter 7, and verse 1. It says, in the first year of Belshazzar, king of Babylon, Daniel had a dream and visions of his head upon his bed. Then he wrote the dream and told the sum of the matters. Daniel spake and said, I saw in my vision by night, and behold, the four winds of the heaven strove upon the great sea, and four great beasts came up from the sea, diverse one from another. So now, what are these beasts? Are they actual beasts? Well, let's find out. Let's jump down to the 17th verse. These great beasts, which are four kings which shall arise out of the earth. So there were going to be four actual empires that were going to be ruled, you know, from a certain particular time to the end. All right. So jumping back to Daniel 7 and 3, oh, I'm sorry, Daniel 7 and 4, it says the first was like a lion and had eagle's wing. So now some of these empires ruled conjointly with others. So the first beast was the Babylonian Empire, but prior to the Babylonian Empire coming into power, you had the Assyrian Empire, and they were ruling, and the Babylonians assimilated into the Assyrian Empire, right? So it says the first was like unto a lion and had eagle's wings. So that represented the what they call a griffin today. And then when you go to different museums and you go online and you check out certain pictures of the Assyrians, they had these griffins, these big half the body of a beast. They had wings, and then they had the head of a man, of an Assyrian, right? It says, and they had the wings. It said, I beheld to the wings thereof were plucked. And how were the wings plucked? By the Babylonian Empire. They came in and they took over. So some so-called scholars call it the Assyrio-Babylonian Empire. All right. It says, and it was lifted up from the earth and made stand upon the feet as a man, and a man's heart was given to it. And the greatest king among the Babylonian Empire was a king by the name of Nebuchadnezzar. He was the greatest king among all the Babylonian rulers. Okay. Apostle Tahar brought out, I had to look it up, you know, Spirit never really hit me to go and look that up. Lord's will, when I get a chance, I will, that all of the Babylonian rulers were actually Assyrian. Their race, or their origin, or their nationality or nation was Assyrian. You know, they just happened to be ruling in the Babylonian Empire. Okay. It says, and behold, another beast, a second like to a bear. Now the second beast was also an empire that ruled conjointly. The first empire to rule was the Medio Empire, the Medes. They were the first to take over the Babylonian Empire. When you read the history in Daniel's the 5th chapter, right? It says, but then you had the Persian Empire that came into rulership conjointly with the Medes, and it became the Medo-Persian Empire, right? It says, and I beheld another beast, a second like to a bear, and it raised up itself on one side, and it had 3 ribs in the mouth between the teeth of it, and they said thus unto it, arise, devour much flesh. And the reason why it rose itself up on one side was because the Persian, even though the Medes took over first, the Persian Empire became a greater empire. Now that's why you hear of rulers like Xerxes and all of them rulers, because that empire of the Persians became greater than the Medes, even though they both ruled together, right? It says, after this I saw in a night vision, and behold, after this I beheld, and lo, another like a leopard. Now this leopard represented Alexander the Creep, but it also represents the Greek Empire that was taken over, and the first king that took over that was Alexander the Creep, right? It says, after this I beheld, and lo, another like a leopard, which had upon the back of it 4 wings of a fowl. The beast had also 4 heads, and dominion was given to it. And that goes into his generals. I'm just focusing on the different empires. So far we went through the Assyrio-Babylonian Empire, the Medo-Persian Empire, and now the Greek Empire. So those are three major empires that ruled, on the planet so far. Okay, it says, after this I saw in a night vision, and behold, a fourth beast, dreadful and terrible and strong exceedingly. That represented the Roman Empire. That was the next empire to take over. And some so-called scholars also call that the Greco-Roman Empire, because at one point the Romans absolved the Greek Empire into their empire, and they ruled together. It says, and strong exceedingly, and it had great iron teeth. It devoured and brake in pieces, and stamped the residue with the feet of it. And it was diverse from all the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns. And those 10 horns go into the 7 heads and 10 horns, which in the ancient Roman Empire, you had the same so-called European countries today. They were allies with the Roman Empire back then under ancient names. Today they're called by their modern names in so-called Europe, but they had their ancient names back then. So this verse here is very broad, because there was a period of time, something that took place within that vision that Daniel received, that didn't break everything down. So then when the Apostle John was on the island of Patmos, the Lord gave him a similar vision, but he expanded on that vision even a little more than that. So let's go from there to the book of Revelation, chapter 13 and 1. Because it wasn't just that the Roman Empire ruled back then. There was something that took place, which we're going to read about, to bring us up into the present day. Because if we leave it there, then that means the end of the world already came once the Roman Empire fell. Okay, so let's go from there to Revelation 13 and 1. And this is a little, a little advanced, a little more advanced class, but it's necessary because we have to go into prophecies, and this is all dealing with prophecy. The scriptures say that Yahweh Shai is the spirit of prophecy. The testimony of Yahweh Shai is the spirit of prophecy. Revelation 13 and 1. And I stood upon the sand of the sea, and saw a beast rise up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon his horns 10 crowns, and upon his heads the names of blood. So that beast with the 7 heads and 10 horns represents the so-called white man, or Esau's empire, beginning with the Greeks all the way up until today. And the 10 horns represent the EU, the European Union. And the beast as a whole, all together, meshed together, is dealing with NATO and the EU. Okay? So those 7 heads are very important, because you have to, the 7 heads, you had the Greeks, you had the Romans, you had the French, you have the Spanish, you have the Germania Major, Germania Minor, and then you have Great Britain. Those are the 7 heads. Okay? And you have to keep that in mind, because those are the 7 empires of Esau that ruled on the planet Earth, beginning from the time of the Greeks all the way up until today. Because it's bringing it all together now. It says, and the beast which I saw was like unto a leopard. So it's going now all the way to the beginning of the beast, which was the Greek Empire. That's why Esau has a term that they call civilization began with the Greeks. Why? Because their civilization began with the Greeks. That's when they first started really ruling. And you can't really count when Edom or Esau had a kingdom, because their rule was very small. The first time that the Edomites really took power and control of the known world was during the time of the Greeks. Okay? And the beast which I saw was like unto the leopard. That's the beginning of the beast. And his feet were as the feet of a bear. And this is the end of the beast, which the bear in this particular verse represents the Russians. And it's no coincidence that the Russians happen to inhabit the lands where the ancient Medes used to be. Although the ancient Medes are a dark-skinned people, not the Edomites that you see there today, but they took over that region of land, up in the north country, up in the north up there, what's called Russia today. So that's the end of it, because the Most High is going to use Russia to bring an end to this whole beast system. You know, America, Babylon the Great Dragon, and all the allies. It's all gonna crumble and fall in 1 hour. It says, and his mouth as the mouth of a lion. Now the lion represents Great Britain, and they're the mouthpiece, because really all the orders are coming from England. They're not coming from America. Everything you see going on in America is coming from England. Why is that? Because in England you have something called the London City State. And who's in control of the London City State? The Rothschilds, because they're the ones that are the top rulers on the planet, along with other international banking families that are so-called Jews. All right, Jewish. All right. So the mouth is of the lion that represents Great Britain. It says, and the dragon gave him his power and his his seat and great authority. Now, when you read the 12th chapter, the dragon is the Roman Empire. Now, how did the dragon give him its power? Because the dragon, the system that you see today, was fractured during the time of the Roman Empire, when the Roman Empire had an end to it. Then, as we're going to read, there was a particular time when it was broken, and now there's a time when it's being healed. So that power that Esau got, and all the strategies for war, and their terminologies for law and for botany, you know, for Greek Roman numerals and all that stuff, and the way they set up their government, and the way that the rulers rule, and the governors and the senators and the congressmen, you know, and the presidents, and the vice president come from ancient Rome, because America is nothing more than the revival of the ancient Roman Empire. So the 3rd verse says, and I saw one of his heads as it were wounded to death. Now, which one of these heads was the one that was wounded to death? The Roman Empire. And you go back in the history, you had Israelites that were getting up into the Roman Empire. You know, as far back as, I believe it was like 68 AD, somewhere around there, when you had the year of the 4 emperors. You know, one of them was a Jake. I believe it was Vitellius, if I'm not mistaken. You know, but then you also had other Jakes that were coming into there, you know, up in time. You know, Commodus, Maximus, Commodus, and Marcus Aurelius. You know, all were Israelites that were ruling in the as emperors in the Roman Empire. You know, so Esau, his power from that empire fell. You know, and then it came, something came, a new empire came in, which they called it the Holy Roman Empire, but really that's where the Byzantine Empire started to rule. So that head of that beast of the Roman Empire was wounded right there, and it was wounded to death because they couldn't come back up into power. It says, and I saw one of his heads as it was wounded to death, and his deadly wound was healed. So when was his deadly wound healed? During a time called the Renaissance period. So they were dead, and then they were rebirthed, you know, going into the 1300s up into the 1400s. That's when Esau started getting in power. They call it the Renaissance, which means rebirth. And that's when Esau started getting his claws and his clutches on the world again. And that's when he started his deception. And when you read the book of Revelation, the 20th chapter, it goes into the history, you know, coming out of the Dark Ages, going into the Renaissance, because there was a dark cloud and chains that were on Esau where he couldn't rule. Same thing with us today. We're in chains today. You know, we can't rule an empire or anything like that until Yahushua comes back and liberates us, you know, and frees us from this hell, from up under the hands of this devil, these Edomites. Then when he sets up his kingdom, then we'll be able to be set up into power. But right now, no matter what we do, we're cursed. You know, brothers have businesses. Their businesses don't do great at all. You know, I mean, we've had our business before and it fell apart. You know, brothers have businesses that are, you know, they're doing okay here and there, but it's not like it would be if we were not under the curses. You see? So that's the same thing with Esau. During that 1,000-year period, nothing he did could work. You know, that's why you had to resort to robbing and stealing and doing all of that stuff, because they couldn't get back into power, because the Most High put a block there until 1,000 years were fulfilled into the future, when their deadly wound was healed and they came back into power and set up this empire that you see today through America and through our allies. You know, the Rome and those European countries, all right, known as NATO, the EU, which is the revival of the Roman Empire. America being Rome, you know, like spiritually Rome today. It says, so now I'm gonna jump from there to Revelation 17, because remember, that's where they got their power from, Rome. And we're going to show you how America came into being. Revelation 17 and 8. It says, the beast that thou sawest was and is not, and shall ascend out of the bottomless pit. Now, who was this beast? This beast that was talking about America, because America is the revival of the Roman Empire, and the bottomless pit represents Europe, because America was birthed through who? Through England. That's why in Jeremiah, either Jeremiah 50 or 51, it says that thy mother shall be ashamed of thee. You know, because England was the one that gave the birth to America. So America is a part of those 7 heads, but it's a different head, even though it's a part of them all, which we're going to get to in here in this chapter. And shall ascend out of this pit and go into perdition, because America was set up to be what? To be destroyed. And they're going to be destroyed in 1 hour by fire, by that lake of fire. It says, and they that dwell on earth shall wonder, whose names were not written in the book of life from the foundation of the world, when they behold the beast that was and is not and yet. So America was not only a prison sentence for us, was not only the establishment and the footing for Esau's empire and his kingdom, but it was also the place where people were going to be deceived. You know, because you have a lot of Israelites today that are mesmerized and taken by Esau. Everything that Esau does or says, they just accept it wholeheartedly, and we speak against them through the scriptures, and they come against us because they have that blinder on them from the Most High that has them loving this devil. Like Apostle Tahar said, you know, he did a video. It was 15 minutes long. You don't know what you don't know, something like that. And he said in there that the Lord could put that Uncle Tom spirit on anybody. You know, so there's certain people that are on this earth that are set up to just be, we're all puppets of the Most High. You know, we're teaching the truth and are able to edify and break these things down because Yahweh Bashem Yahushai gave it to us to do it. Otherwise, we would not be able to do it. I don't give a damn if you take all these videos, beginning with Apostle Tahar, Apostle Gabar, Apostle Ricard, the elders, and all the rest of great millstone men. You could take all those videos, sit there, analyze them, scrutinize them, and try to mimic it and get it. You're not going to get it. Scripture said the wicked shall not understand. You know, so America is a place where Jake is really believing that they can prosper and be free. You know, and we were all in that mind state at one point until the Lord woke us up out of the matrix, and now our minds are open to seeing the truth and the reality of what really is going down, and the Lord allowed us to separate ourselves from that. You know, so Barakatah Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. Verse 9, and here is the mind which hath wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 mountains on which the woman sitteth. Now those 7 mountains represent 7 governments. I gave you the names before. You had the Greeks, the Romans, the French, the Spanish, Germania Major, Germania Minor, and England. You know, Great Britain. It says, and there are 7 kings. 5 are fallen, and the 5 that were fallen were the Greeks, the Spanish, the French, Germania Major, and Germania Minor. They had fallen at that time because they were under the rulership of the Roman Empire, which was one of the heads. It says, and one is, and the one that is the Roman Empire. They were ruling, but what happened? They ended up falling, and the other is not yet come. And what is the other that had not yet come? England or Britain, because it wasn't time for that particular head to rule yet. It was going to be in the future. It says, and when he cometh, he must continue for a short space. And then when they came into power, they ruled for a short period of time. And guess what? America came into power. And pretty much, even though they're calling the shots behind the scene, America became a greater empire than them. Because you don't have the majority of military bases around the earth are American, over 800. You know, so this became a greater empire than any other empire that was ever on the face of the earth. It says, and the beast that was and is not, which is America, even he is the eighth head. You know, so another head came up among those, because America is not just a country that they use. America is a great empire. That's why the apostle John wondered after the woman with great admiration. Because it is a great empire if your eyes are not open, you know, and that's why you have all different types of called immigrants trying to come to this country and make it. Because even to this day, even though it's falling apart, people still believe in this place. But the golden city has ceased. It says, and the beast that was and is not, even he is the eighth and is of the seven, and goeth into perdition, because they're going to be destroyed by their own allies, you know, and by Russia and other nations out there that the Lord is going to use to destroy this place. Okay, and you brothers could read the rest. You know, you could read the rest. I just wanted to hit that point to let you know that America is a part of that beast system, so to speak. All right, now let's go from there back to Revelation 13:3, and it says, and I saw one of his heads as it were wounded to death, and his deadly wound was healed. And all the world wondered after the beast. So I saw one of his heads as it was wounded to death during the time of the Roman Empire. The Roman Empire fell, and Esau was down for a period of 1,000 years. It says, and his deadly wound was healed. And when was his deadly wound healed? During the time of the Renaissance. That's when they came back into power. And when they came back into power, they started whitewashing everything, teaching their philosophy, their doctrine, their form of Christianity. And all the world wondered after the beast. And that's why to this day you have people that are enthralled and under the spell of the Roman Catholic Church in America, man. You see these people when the Pope starts throwing his hands up, you know, and I'm not talking about to shake his thing. I'm talking about throwing his hands up, witchcraft, people fainting, shaking, crying and shit. These devils got power, you know. Those are the signs and wonders that the Lord said that they would have, you know. And those people are blinded because the Most High got them blinded. And we have our eyes open because the Lord opened up our eyes to it, to be able to see it. All right, now let's jump from there to the 11th verse. Okay, and it says, so this is after it was wounded, then it came back into power, right? Verse 11, and I beheld another beast coming up out of the earth, and that beast is who? America. Because remember, that was an eighth head, and he had two horns like a lamb, and he spake as a dragon. You know, and that's why they have, you know, the two parties, you know, the Republican and the Democratic parties, you know, because they're acting like they're against each other, but they're working for the same team. Talking about partisan and all that crap, but they're both working for the same team for the same goal. Just like these judges, lawyers, prosecutors, and all that you see, they're all working for the same team, but they're gonna make you think that they're working on your side. Bullshit. It says, verse 12, and he exercised all the power of the first beast before him. And what is that? That is the power of the Roman Empire. And that's the reason why when you look at the legislation of America, you look up at the way that the buildings are structured and the way that America is set up, you know, and the way that the court systems are set up and the way that they elect their presidents and their congressmen and how they have the Senate House and all of that, that all came from the ancient Roman Empire. So they exercise in the same power because the Most High allowed America or their ancient Roman Empire to be revived again. So we're at the revival of the ancient Roman Empire now, right? And caused the earth and them that dwell therein to worship the first beast whose deadly wound was healed. Why? Because they're doing it. They're celebrating ancient Rome when they celebrate in America, because America and ancient Rome are one and the same. No, the only difference is that America is in a different part of the world, and the empire has expanded even greater than that of, but it's expanded through the world. It's expanded around the world through America today. All right, so now let's jump from there. Let's jump from there to, let's see where we at. Let's jump from there to Daniel 7 and 8. All right, we're almost done. Daniel 7 and 8. I considered the horns, and behold, there came up among them another little horn. And that's what we read in the book of Revelation 17, that America was the eighth head. You had 7 heads, and then you had 7 horns, 7 heads, 7 heads, and then one more head came up among them. All right, this little horn here is America, before whom there were 3 of the first horns plucked up by the roots. And that goes back into the history of the 3 major wars that America fought to get this place. The British, the Spanish, and the French. And behold, in his horns were the eyes like the eyes of a man, and the mouth speaking great things. And man, you could incorporate, because this is speaking about America, but you could incorporate that devil Donald Trump in there, because that dude talks nothing but shit. And Lord's will, I want to do another lesson with that whole situation with him and Putin. He's kind of kissing Putin's ass, and like Apostle Tar put it, he's giving Putin those niceties, but pretty much the Lord is going to intervene in all of that. All right, you can kiss Putin's ass all you want, but America's still going to be destroyed, because Yahweh Bashem Yahushua said it will be destroyed. It says, I beheld till the thrones were cast down. So now this is Daniel seeing all these empires being thrown down. So now we know that it didn't happen during the time of the Roman Empire, because we're still here today. So this all began with the Greek Empire. I'm sorry. Yeah, no, with the Assyrio-Babylonian Empire, and it's ending today with the revival of the Roman Empire, which we're in today. So Daniel, after all of that, he saw the thrones being cast down, meaning all them different empires being destroyed. And that's why when Yahushua comes back, he's going to be known as the King of Kings and Lord of Lords, because he's taken all the crowns of all these different nations unto himself. It says, and the Ancient of Days did sit, which is the Most High, whose garment was white as snow, and the hair of his head like the pure wool, because he has woolly hair, because he's a so-called black man, a so-called Negro. All right. It says, his throne was like the fiery flame, and his wheels as burning fire. That's dealing with the chariot. The fiery stream issued and came forth from before him. Thousands ministered unto him, and 10,000 times 10,000 stood before him. And that's dealing with the angels. The judgment was set, and the books were opened. Why? The prophet Habakkuk said that at the end it shall speak. So the books are being opened right now. They're speaking. The prophecies are taking place. They're taking hold of the earth and of who they're supposed to be taking hold of. All right. It says, I beheld then, because of the voice of the great words which the horn spake. I beheld even till the beast was slain, and his body destroyed and given to the burning flame, because eventually America is going to be destroyed by thermonuclear destruction. And any empire or any other nation that's ruling is going to be laid down. The Most High is going to send Yahushua, and they're going to lay it down smooth. America is going to be laid down smooth, but it's going to be laid down turbulently smooth. And it's going to be a flawless victory. As concerning the rest of the beast, this is dealing with the rest of them other nations, right? It says they had their domain taken away, so they're gonna when the kingdom is established, they're gonna be slaves under us. Yet their lives were prolonged for a season and time. Why? Because they're gonna have, after they serve their punishment, they're going to be able to have their rulership among themselves again, but they're still going to be tributary to us, and they're still going to have to learn our ways, our laws, statutes, and commandments. They're going to have to follow our high holy days. They're going to have to adhere to the dietary law, and everything. They're not going to be able to do anything that goes against the scriptures or the law, or else that's where we come in to judge them, for it. It says, I saw, and then so this is Daniel seeing the end of everything. So we're at the end. All these things already took place. So we're coming now to the point where Yahushua told the disciples when they asked him about the end of the world, we're coming to that point right now. So this devil can't go any further, because this is it. This is the end. This is the end. You know, this is it. He's finished. Finito. Done. It says, I saw in the night vision, and behold, so after the beast is destroyed and all these different empires are brought down to their knees, and this destruction comes and America is totally wiped out, it says, behold, one like the Son of Man came with the clouds of heaven. That's Yahushua. And came to the Ancient of Days, and they brought him near before him. So this is after all of this happens, Yahushua is going to be presented again before the Most High. Man, this, whoo! And there was given him dominion and glory and a kingdom, that all people and nations and languages shall serve him. His dominion is an everlasting dominion which shall not pass away, and his kingdom that which shall not be destroyed. And that's what the Most High said, sit on my right hand until I make thy enemies thy footstool. And this is the moment when Yahushua will be presented with that honor, because he has to take these devils down first and then be presented before the Most High. Everything is done in order, man. You know, like when you go to battle, you destroy a certain enemy of your king, and then you're brought before the court. Everything is laid out. You know, everybody's decked out, and you got your best on, and they bring you before the king. You know, so the king can give you his honor. You know, his kind words, his honor, and whatever riches and whatever he promised you, whatever lands he promised you, women he promised you. Well, this is in a small sense, or in a greater sense, should I say, this is what Yahushua is going to go through after he destroys all these devils. He's going to be presented before the Most High, and the Most High is going to give him that dominion. It says, now let's jump from there to the 14th verse. No, 18th verse. It says, but the saints of the Most High shall take the kingdom and possess the kingdom forever, even forever and ever. And that's dealing with us, the Israelites. All right? Because we're joint heirs with Yahushua. Jump into the 27th verse. It says, and the kingdom and dominion and the greatness of the kingdom under the whole heaven shall be given to the people of the saints of the Most High, whose kingdom is an everlasting kingdom, and all dominions shall serve and obey him. So we're at that point now where the Lord is about to raise us up. So this devil has no more time left. He's finished. So we're at the end of it. And this is another way that you know that Esau, or the so-called white men today, are the Edomites. And I'm gonna leave you with one last scripture, but I just want to check something real quick. Just bear with me. Okay, now let's go from there to the last precept I have, which is 2nd Ezra, the 6th chapter, right? And I started 6. Then did I consider these things, and they were all made through me alone, and through none other. By me also they shall be ended, and by none other. Then answered I and said, what shall be the parting asunder of the times? And when shall be the end of the first, and the beginning of it that followeth? And he said unto me, from Abraham unto Isaac, when Jacob and Esau were born of him, Jacob's hand held first the heel of Esau. For Esau is the end of the world, and Jacob is the beginning of it that followeth. So Esau is the end of the world. This devil that's ruling today, they are the Edomites. The final rule, you know, the revival of that Roman Empire that the Most High through Yahushua and the angels showed unto John and showed unto Daniel, you know, and they wrote these things down. So we're at the time of the end. The end of this devil's age is coming, the end of his world. All right. So the end of the world is not talking about the end of society and people as you see it and the earth being excited and all that. No, it's an end of an age. The Most High is turning the pages on Esau. You know, the pages are turned on Esau, and he's about to be history. Once he serves his 1,000 years of slavery, once his empire is taken down, then he's going to be history, because he's going to be gathered up. All of them are going to be gathered up and burnt up. All right. So with that, I hope you brothers have been edified. Until the next time I say, Shalom.